Continuing with the series on books about training for knife fighting, we come to two books by the same author, which are both very comprehensive books and certainly are a contribution to the literature. So they are actually two books in a series, and the first one is the Knife Fighting Encyclopedia, Volume 1, by W. Hock Hochheim, who's commonly known as Hock. And he is a very, very significant instructor in the field of close quarter combat, with both military law enforcement background and also a very complete background in edge weapon and impact weapon work, particularly in the Filipino systems, and he actually trained in the Philippines. So encyclopedia is exactly the right word for this book. It is absolutely comprehensive. The contents goes on for several pages, and I bought it many years ago. Let's just see when it was published. 97. I think I bought it not long after it was published. And I certainly got an awful lot of information out of it. A review like this can't really do the book justice because it really is an absolute font of all aspects of knowledge about edge weapon work. It's not really about the defense against the knife, it's about the use of the knife, which is, knife fighting. And it really does cover all the bases, from grips to footwork to striking, etc., etc. But the meat of it, I would say, is the material mainly from the Philippines on training with the knife, both solo and partner drills, and they're dissected and described in great detail. He uses English terminology rather than the Tagalog names. That doesn't matter unless you're already familiar with those in the original. And as I say, I found it very, very useful, and I got a lot from this book. The second book is not quite as big, and volume 2, and it's military knife combat. And this book is really the counterpart to the first book, but based on the military use of the knife, and interspersed with the techniques and so on, and the material from other sources that he references are numerous cases of the knife being used in military combat through the ages. And that alone makes the book a very worthwhile tome. One of the things is 10 deadly mistakes in knife combat. And one of the things he talks about is with the grip, that there is a grip taught in the Filipino martial arts. And, let me say right off the bat, I'm a big fan of the Filipino martial arts for knife work. But there is a grip taught by some of the schools, and it's this grip. And the idea is that you can intercept a limb using your thumb and redirect it and then cut. And Hock absolutely denigrates this grip. He says it's useless. That it makes the grip on the knife very, very weak. Couldn't agree more. So it's full of that kind of sense, that it just because something's in a traditional art, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily useful. So there's material on because it's military, there's material on sentry elimination, which is of limited interest to anyone else except the military, but it's very, very useful to have it all in one place for those guys. And then there's it says a portfolio of military knife training strategies, techniques, and scenarios. Loads of them, pages full of drills, techniques, and so on. Brilliant stuff, really. And both books are very, very good in their own way. This one's focused on the military, and if that's your field of study, then this is particularly useful. The one thing I would note about a book on military knife combat, that it doesn't mention Fairbairn, either the man or the knife, which you might consider to be quite a notable omission. The two books together, or the first book, if the first book really is complete, a knife fighting system. When it was written, we were still relying on books for our sources of information. Since then, we have gone more to DVDs. So what I would do, I would supplement the encyclopedia with Hock's DVD series, of which he's done quite a few. And I actually bought one of his tape VHS back in the day, and I found it very, very useful. It's one of the better knife training tapes, very easy to understand. He's a dynamic instructor. The last thing I'd say is that Nick Hughes has trained with Hock and rates him very, very highly. He showed me a couple of techniques when I was over in the States with him that he learned from Hock on arrest techniques for police officers. And all I can say, if he's good enough for Nick Hughes, he's good enough for me. Really recommend those books. They are a very significant contribution to the literature.